1986's The Devil's Honey is not necessarily one of my favourite of Fulci's films, although there's at least a couple of old IMDb reviews which appear to vouch for it, so I'll read those out and let them make the case for it. Some of these screen caps are okay. There's qualities to these films, as are all of Fulci's films up on this point onward. Direct JW on the 18th of November 1999, Sadomasochism, Love, Obsession, another Fulci classic. This is an atypical Lucio Fulci film that it focuses on themes which are usually examined by Jess Franco. Nevertheless, this is still one of my top 3 favourite Fulci films. Behind Lizard in a Woman's Skin and New York Ripper, it is an interesting examination of an increasingly dangerous sadomasochistic relationship, a relationship tinged with unbridled lust, obsession, torture, and love. Although the first 30 minutes of the film, with the exception of the great saxophone sex scene, are quite silly and cheaply done, the second half of the film completely surprised me with its serious and dark tone. As the film progresses, we are increasingly drawn into a truly screwed up relationship until we realise that the only resolution to this relationship is absolute nihilism and destruction. An atypical yet ultimately satisfying film by the maestro Fulci would make a great double feature with Adrian Lyne's 9.5 Weeks. Well, now, our friend The Underscore Void, on the 23rd of May 2006, another lost Fulci gem. Lucio Fulci's name has become synonymous with gore, and that is unfortunate, as there's so much more to the great Italian director than just splatter flicks. The 4 pre-zombie 2 giallo films that Fulci made to prove this, and there's enough other gems dotted throughout the man's filmography that go a long way towards proving it further, The Devil's Honey being one of them. This is a surprisingly restrained film considering the more famous Fulci flicks, although the lack of gore is somewhat made up for nudity, as this film is certainly not short on that front. The first 20 minutes aren't a far cry away from being a porn film, and it's not until the first plot point that we realise Fulci does have actually a story to tell. The plot follows a young man who has an accident, which is completely his own fault, and ends up on the operating table of Dr. Simpson, a man tormented by his nagging wife and questionable manhood. After the young man dies, poor old Dr. Simpson begins receiving irritating phone calls from a woman repeatedly asking why he let the man die. Before long, he finds himself the captive of the vindictive female. It has to be said that the story plays out well. While it's not exactly plot heavy, Fulci does a good job of keeping the sexual tension high, and that is balanced and that is highly beneficial. Since it's the main point of the movie, the film is bound to appeal to sadists and feminists alike. Well, that's... who knows. As much of the movie features the young woman exacting her revenge on the man she blames for the death of her lover, the main intrigue comes from the relationship between the two leads. As although their acquaintance is based on hatred, they soon develop a perverse love for one another. Perhaps the most surprising thing about this film is the fact that the love doesn't come across as contrived. Fulci sets up the characters so well that it's easy to see how and why this relationship transpires as it does. The only real problem with the film is that Fulci spends a little too much time with flashbacks between the girl and her dead lover. And this takes the focus away from the girl and the doctor, which should always be kept at the forefront of the film. However, The Devil's Honey works well in spite of that, and overall this little thrill is worth seeking out. I'd also like to give a quick mention to the poem that the movie takes its title from, as like the rest of the film, it's rather good. We'll close it here. Thanks, everyone. I appreciate it very immensely.